The drunken Korean Mafia boss was attacked by thugs with knives, then a black waitress beat all of them with her karate. The bottle of soju hit the pavement and shattered, expensive liquor mixing with rain and blood. Kang Dae-hyun didn't feel it. Didn't feel much of anything anymore, except the blessed numbness that came from drinking himself into oblivion. 4 men circled him in the alley behind the bar, switchblades gleaming under the flickering streetlight, and all he could think was, finally, let it end. The great Kang Dae-hyun, the tallest one, sneered in Korean, face scarred from temple to jaw. Not so great when you're drunk off your ass, are you? Where's your army now? Your power? Your legendary reputation? Dae-hyun laughed, a broken, bitter sound that scraped his throat raw. Dead, like everything else. He spread his arms wide, swaying on his feet. So do it. Kill me. You'll be doing me a favor. The first blade came fast, aimed at his ribs. Dae-hyun tried to dodge, but his body wouldn't cooperate. The alcohol had him in its grip, slowing his legendary reflexes to nothing. He felt the steel bite into his side, hot and sharp, and distantly registered that he should care. Then a voice cut through the rain. A woman's voice, strong and clear. Step the fuck back, now! Dae-hyun's vision was blurry, but he saw her. Black woman, maybe 5'6", wearing a cheap waitress uniform with a name tag that said Nia. She stood at the mouth of the alley, rain plastering her natural hair to her skull, stance wide and balanced like a fighter's. One of the thugs laughed. Go home, little girl. This doesn't concern you. You're in front of my workplace, making a mess I'll have to clean up. That makes it my concern. Nia's voice was calm, almost bored. Last chance. Walk away. The scarred man moved toward her, knife extended. Stupid bitch! What happened next was beautiful. Dae-hyun watched through his alcohol haze as Nia moved with the precision of a master. Sidestep, palm strike to the wrist that sent the knife clattering away, spinning kick to the knee that dropped the man screaming. Second thug rushed her. She caught his arm, used his momentum against him, threw him headfirst into the brick wall. He crumpled like paper. The third and fourth came together, thinking numbers would help. Nia flowed like water. Block, strike, sweep, each movement economical and devastating. Within 30 seconds, all 4 men were on the ground, groaning, and Nia stood over them without even breathing hard. I trained in Shotokan karate for 15 years, she said conversationally, shaking out her hands. 4th degree black belt. You picked the wrong alley, gentlemen. She pulled out her phone. Now I'm calling the cops, and you're going to stay right there until they arrive, unless you'd like a demonstration of what I can do when I'm actually trying. They scrambled up and ran, limping and clutching injuries. Nia watched them go, then turned to Dae-hyun, who had slid down the wall into a sitting position, hand pressed against the bleeding wound in his side. Jesus Christ, you're bleeding. She was beside him instantly, pulling his hand away to assess the damage. How drunk are you? Can you walk? Very, and no. Dae-hyun looked up at her, and even through the alcohol fog, he felt something shift in his chest. She had the most beautiful eyes he'd ever seen, dark brown, fierce, focused. You fight like a warrior. You talk like you're dying. Come on, big guy. I'm taking you to the ER. She pulled out her phone again. No hospitals. Dae-hyun grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. No cops. No questions. Please. Nia studied him, his expensive suit now soaked in rain and blood, the Rolex on his wrist, the tattoos peeking out from under his collar. You're in some kind of trouble. Criminal trouble. The worst kind. His grip loosened. Just leave me. You've done enough. That wound needs stitches. You need fluids and probably a night in detox. Nia sighed, making a decision she'd probably regret. I live upstairs, small first aid kit, but it'll do. Can you make it up 1 flight of stairs if I help you? Why would you help me? Because I'm an idiot with a savior complex. Come on before you bleed out in front of my workplace. I just mopped this alley yesterday. She got him upstairs somehow, half carrying, half dragging his considerable weight. Dae-hyun was tall, muscular, easily 200 pounds of dead weight and alcohol, but Nia was stronger than she looked and determined. Her apartment was tiny, studio with a Murphy bed, minimalist furniture, but impeccably clean. Martial arts trophies lined a shelf. Photos of a younger Nia in a GI, holding medals, demonstrating forms. She settled Daehyun on her couch and went for her first aid kit. "Shirt off," she ordered, and when he struggled with the buttons, she did it herself with clinical efficiency. The shirt came away to reveal a body covered in scars and elaborate tattoos, a full Yakuza-style bodysuit, dragons and tigers and cherry blossoms in stunning detail. "You're Korean Mafia," Nia said flatly, examining the knife wound. "That's why no hospitals." "Was," Daehyun corrected, eyes closing as the room spun. "Used to be. Now I'm nothing." "Well, Mr. Nothing, this is going to hurt. Bite down on this." She handed him a leather belt, then pulled out needle and thread. "I'm not a doctor, but I spent 2 years as a combat medic in the army. Hold still." The pain cut through his drunken haze, sharp and bright. Daehyun bit down on the belt and felt Nia's steady hands working, closing the wound with precise stitches. She'd done this before, moved with the confidence of someone who'd sewn up injuries in the field, under pressure. "Combat medic," he managed around the belt. "Karate expert. Waitress. Interesting combination." "Yeah, well, life doesn't always go according to plan." She finished the last stitch, tied it off, and started bandaging. "I was Army for 4 years, got out, couldn't find work that paid enough. Turns out a 4th-degree black belt and combat experience don't translate well to civilian jobs. So I waitress at night, teach karate to kids during the day. Not glamorous, but it's honest. Honest is worth more than most people realize." Daehyun opened his eyes, studying her face. Strong features, no makeup, exhaustion evident around her eyes. But beautiful. God, she was beautiful. "I'm Daehyun, Kang Daehyun, Nia Carter." And Daehyun, why was the head of a Korean crime family getting drunk in an alley, letting random thugs stab him? "Who said I'm the head?" "Your tattoos, the quality of your suit, the way you carry yourself even when you're drunk, like someone used to command." She finished bandaging and sat back. "So, what happened? Why are you trying to die in an alley?" Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the pain breaking through his numbness. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, with curiosity instead of fear, interest instead of judgment. Whatever the reason, Daehyun found himself talking. 3 months ago, I led the Kang family, one of the most powerful Korean organizations in Los Angeles. We controlled Koreatown, had operations across the city, employed hundreds of people. I was untouchable. His voice went flat. Then my wife and daughter died in a car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light, killed them instantly. Nia's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry. I fell apart. Couldn't lead, couldn't function. My second-in-command staged a coup. Took over the family, claimed I was unfit. He was right. I was unfit. Still am." Daehyun laughed bitterly. "So now I drink. Try to forget. Wait for death to find me." "That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard," Nia said bluntly. "Your family died, so you're going to throw away your life? Dishonor their memory by becoming a drunk who gets stabbed in alleys?" Anger flashed through Daehyun's fog. "You don't understand." "I understand grief. My fiancé died in Afghanistan. IED took out his convoy. I came home to bury him and spent the next year drowning in bottles and bad decisions." Nia's eyes were hard. "But you know what? He wouldn't have wanted that. Would your wife and daughter want to see you like this?" The question hit like a physical blow. Daehyun saw Jiwon's face, her disappointed expression whenever he'd come home late from business. Saw little Sumin's smile, the way she'd run to him shouting, "Appa!" No, they wouldn't want this. "I don't know how to live without them," he admitted, voice breaking. "You start by not dying, then you figure out the rest one day at a time." Nia stood, getting a glass of water. "You can sleep on my couch tonight. In the morning, you go home, sober up, and decide if you're going to honor their memory or disgrace it. Your choice." She handed him the water and aspirin, then disappeared behind a folding screen to change out of her wet uniform. Daehyun sat there, wounded and drunk and more awake than he'd been in months, and wondered what the hell had just happened. He woke to sunlight burning his eyes and a headache that felt like someone had driven railroad spikes through his skull. Nia was in her tiny kitchen area, making eggs and toast, dressed in workout clothes that showed off lean muscle. "Morning, sunshine. How's the hangover from hell?" She brought him coffee. Black, strong, exactly what he needed. "And before you ask, yes, Last night really happened. You got stabbed, I stitched you up, and you told me your tragic backstory. Dae-hyun groaned. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had to deal with that. I chose to. Could have called the cops, let them handle it. She sat beside him with her own coffee. But I saw something in your eyes. Underneath the death wish and self-destruction. Something worth saving. You're wrong. I'm never wrong. 4th degree black belt, remember? We're trained in reading people. She grinned and it transformed her face. Eat. You need food in your system. Then you're going home, and I'm going to give you my number. Why would you give me your number? Because if you're going to rebuild your life, you'll need a friend who isn't afraid to call you on your bullshit. Nia's expression turned serious. And because I meant what I said, you dishonor your family's memory by dying drunk in an alley. Honor them by living, by being the man they loved. Something in Dae-hyun's chest cracked open, a fissure in the wall he'd built around his grief. I don't even know you. So get to know me. Take me to dinner once you're sober. Tell me about your wife and daughter. Let yourself remember the good parts instead of drowning in the loss. She squeezed his hand. You saved thousands of people over your career, Dae-hyun. Let someone save you for once. He left an hour later, Nia's number programmed into his phone, head spinning with more than just the hangover. He'd been ready to die, had welcomed those knives, but this woman, this stranger who demolished 4 thugs and then sewn him up like it was nothing, had somehow pulled him back from the edge. Dae-hyun didn't call for a week, spent those 7 days in his penthouse apartment, surrounded by photos of Ji-won and Sumin, fighting the urge to reach for the bottle. Every time he wanted to drink, he thought about Nia's words. Would your wife and daughter want to see you like this? On the 8th day, he called. It's Dae-hyun, from the alley. I remember. Kind of hard to forget the drunk Mafia boss I stitched up. He could hear the smile in her voice. You sober? Yes, 7 days now. Good. Dinner's on you then. Somewhere nice. I'm tired of ramen and dreams. He took her to the best Korean restaurant in Koreatown, the kind with private rooms and menus that didn't list prices. Nia showed up in a simple black dress that somehow made her look both elegant and dangerous, her natural hair styled in an elaborate updo. You clean up nice, Dae-hyun said, standing as she approached. He'd worn his best suit, gotten a haircut, tried to look like the man he used to be instead of the wreck he'd become. So do you. Less blood this time. She grinned, but her eyes were assessing him carefully. How are you, really? Barely holding on, but holding on. He pulled out her chair. I wanted to thank you properly, for saving my life, he struggled for words, for seeing something worth saving. You're welcome. But Dae-hyun, I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it was right. Nia accepted the menu from their server. Now, tell me about your family, the real stories, not the tragedy, the life. So he did. Told her about meeting Ji-won in college, how she'd been studying art while he was drowning in business expectations, how she'd seen past his family's reputation to the man underneath. Their wedding, small and intimate despite his father's protests. Sumin's birth, holding his daughter for the first time and understanding what love really meant. Ji-won used to paint, he said, smiling at the memory. Watercolors mostly, landscapes. She'd set up in the park while Sumin played, just paint for hours. She said it kept her sane, dealing with my world. She sounds wonderful. She was. Patient, kind, stronger than anyone gave her credit for. She kept me grounded when the family business tried to consume me. Dae-hyun's throat tightened. And Sumin, God, Sumin was pure light. 6 years old, already reading at a 4th grade level, obsessed with dinosaurs. What was her favorite? Triceratops. She had a stuffed one named Terry that went everywhere with her. The memory hurt, but it was a sweet hurt, the kind that meant they'd lived, meant something. I used to read her dinosaur books every night before bed. She'd correct me if I got the names wrong. Nia listened without interruption, without pity, just genuine interest. And Dae-hyun found himself talking more than he had in months, about his family, his business, the weight of leadership, and the impossible choices that came with his position. Your turn, he said finally. Tell me about Nia Carter. How does an Army combat medic with a black belt end up waitressing in Koreatown? Long story. You sure you want to hear it? We have all night. Nia told him about growing up in Detroit, poverty and violence everywhere. Her mother worked 3 jobs, died of a heart attack when Nia was 15. Her father had never been in the picture. She'd raised her 2 younger siblings while finishing high school, joined the Army the day after graduation for the steady paycheck and college benefits. I discovered karate in basic training, she said. There was this drill sergeant, Master Sergeant Kim, Korean-American 4th degree black belt. She saw me fighting in hand-to-hand combat training and said I had potential. Started teaching me after hours. Became like a mother to me. Where is she now? Retired in Seoul. We still video chat every week. Nia smiled. She's the one who convinced me to move to LA after I got out. Said there was a strong Korean community here, that I could find work teaching martial arts. But you're waitressing instead. Turns out starting a dojo requires capital I don't have. And most established schools don't want to hire a black instructor, even with my credentials. She shrugged, but he could see the hurt underneath. So I teach kids in my apartment building's rec room for whatever their parents can afford, and I waitress to pay rent. That's wrong. Your skills are worthless without opportunity. Welcome to America. Nia's smile was sharp. But I'm working on it, saving money. One day I'll have my own place, my own school. Just taking longer than planned. Dae-hyun studied her across the table. This woman who'd saved his life, who'd survived poverty and loss and discrimination, who still fought for her dreams despite every obstacle. What if you didn't have to wait? What do you mean? I have resources, money, connections. What if I invested in your dojo? Nia's expression hardened. I'm not a charity case. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering partnership. Dae-hyun leaned forward. You saved my life, Nia. Gave me a reason to stay sober, to keep fighting. Let me help you achieve your dream. Not as a handout, as an investment in someone I believe in. You barely know me. I know you're strong, skilled, compassionate enough to help a drunk stranger, and brutally honest enough to tell him he's dishonoring his family's memory. His eyes held hers. That's enough for me. They argued about it through dessert, Nia refusing to accept what felt like pity, Dae-hyun insisting it was sound business. Finally, she agreed to think about it, and they left the restaurant walking side by side through Koreatown's night streets. Can I ask you something? Nia said as they reached her building. Why'd you really call me? It wasn't just to say thank you. Dae-hyun stopped, choosing his words carefully. Because in 7 days of sobriety, fighting every minute not to drink, the only thing that kept me going was remembering your eyes. The way you looked at me like I was a person, not a title or a tragedy. I wanted to see that look again. Dae-hyun, I'm not asking for anything. I know I'm a mess, that I have a long way to go. But Nia, you make me want to be better, to rebuild. And I don't know if that's appropriate or too soon or... She kissed him, rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his, silencing his rambling with direct action. The kiss was brief, sweet, full of possibility. It's appropriate, she said when they broke apart. It's terrifying and probably stupid, but it's appropriate. Because Dae-hyun, I haven't stopped thinking about you either. About those sad eyes and that death wish you're fighting. About the man you could be if you let yourself heal. I don't know how to do this. Date someone new. Move forward. Neither do I. My fiancé died 3 years ago, and I haven't looked at another man since. Nia took his hand. So we figure it out together. Slowly. Honestly. No expectations except that we'll try. I can do that. Good. Then come upstairs. I'll make tea, and we'll talk until sunrise like actual adults instead of making out in the street like teenagers. They talked until dawn, sharing stories and grief and cautious hope. And when Dae-hyun finally left, walking into the morning light sober and whole, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Alive. The next 3 months were a study in contrast. Dae-hyun fought his way back from the edge, attending AA meetings, seeing a therapist specializing in grief, slowly rebuilding himself. Nia was there through all of it, not fixing him, just standing beside him as he fixed himself. They went on dates. Normal dates. Movies and dinners and walks through Griffith Park. Nia taught him karate basics in her rec room, laughing when his form was sloppy. Dae-hyun taught her Korean cooking, his mother's recipes, the comfort food of his childhood. But the shadow of his former life kept intruding. The man who'd taken over the Kang family, Park Jin-seok, Dae-hyun's former second-in-command, was running the organization into the ground. Extortion, human trafficking, drugs. All the lines Dae-hyun had refused to cross. "You have to stop him," Nia said one night, reading news reports about increased violence in Koreatown. "People are getting hurt. Your people. They're not my people anymore. I walked away." "You didn't walk away. You were grieving, and he took advantage." She turned to face him. "Dae-hyun, I know you want to leave that life behind. I respect that. But can you really sit here while Jin-sok destroys everything your family built?" He couldn't. That was the truth he'd been avoiding. Because going back meant confronting Jin-sok, meant potentially returning to violence and power plays and all the darkness he'd been trying to escape. But it also meant protecting the community his grandfather had helped build, the businesses his father had nurtured, the people who depended on the Kang family's protection for decades. "If I do this," Dae-hyun said slowly, "if I take back control, I need to do it differently. No more operating in the shadows, crossing lines. Everything legitimate, everything legal." "Can you do that? Transition an entire criminal organization?" "I don't know, but I have to try." He took her hand. "Will you help me? Not with the fighting or the business. Just be there. Keep me grounded. Remind me who I'm trying to be. Always." The meeting was set for neutral ground, a warehouse in the industrial district overseen by the other Korean family heads. Dae-hyun arrived with Nia beside him, wearing a bulletproof vest under her jacket at his insistence. "You didn't have to come," he told her in the car. "Yes, I did. You're walking into a room full of criminals to challenge for leadership. I'm not letting you do that alone." Jin-suk was already there, surrounded by men Dae-hyun had once called brothers. The traitor looked older, harder, corruption evident in every line of his face. "Kang Dae-hyun," Jin-suk said in Korean, voice dripping contempt. "I heard you'd sobered up. Couldn't stay away from power, could you?" "I stayed away while you honored what my family built," Dae-hyun replied in Korean, then switched to English for Nia's benefit. "But you've betrayed everything we stood for. The Kang family protected this community. You're destroying it. I'm making money, real money, not playing at being noble while criminals. We were criminals with honor. You're just a thug." Dae-hyun's voice was cold. "I'm challenging for leadership, right now, by whatever method you choose." The room went silent. Challenge fights were rare but traditional, a way to resolve leadership disputes without splitting organizations. Jin-suk smiled slowly. "You're soft now. Broken. You really think you can beat me? Let's find out." The fight was brutal. Jin-suk was younger, hadn't been drinking himself to death for months. But Dae-hyun had rage and purpose. And Nia's voice in his head, "You dishonor their memory by dying drunk. Honor them by living." They traded blows. Dae-hyun taking hits that would have dropped him months ago. Jin-suk fought dirty. Eye gouges, groin shots, everything forbidden in honorable combat. Dae-hyun fought back with technique refined over decades, the muscle memory of a lifetime in violence. Jin-suk pulled a knife, against the rules, against tradition, but he was losing and desperate. The blade slashed toward Dae-hyun's throat. And Nia was there, moved faster than anyone anticipated, caught Jin-suk's wrist, applied a joint lock that made him scream and drop the knife. Then she swept his legs, dropped him hard on his back, and pressed her foot against his throat. "He said no weapons," Nia said calmly in perfect Korean, surprising everyone. "You broke the rules. That means you forfeit." Jin-suk struggled, but Nia pressed down harder. "The lady is right," one of the other family heads said. "Jin-suk brought a blade to an honor fight. He forfeits leadership." Dae-hyun stood over his former friend, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. "You're out. Take your followers and leave Koreatown. If I see you again, we won't be so merciful." Jin-suk left, humiliated and defeated. The other family heads approached Dae-hyun, offering formal recognition of his restored leadership. But Dae-hyun raised his hand. "I'm taking control, but things are changing. The Kang family is going legitimate. All operations, all businesses. No more drugs, no more trafficking, no more crossing the lines that make us criminals instead of businessmen. Anyone who can't accept that can leave now." Some did. Maybe a third of his former organization walked away, unwilling to give up the easy money of illegal operations. But the rest stayed, and Dae-hyun began the long process of transformation. It took 2 years to fully legitimize the Kang family operations. 2 years of difficult decisions, careful negotiations, and slowly rebuilding his reputation as a man of honor rather than a crime boss. Dae-hyun transitioned protection rackets into legitimate security services. Gambling operations became licensed establishments. Smuggling networks transformed into import-export businesses operating within the law. And through it all, Nia was there. She opened her dojo, Nia's Warriors, funded by Dae-hyun's investment, but run entirely by her vision. It became a sanctuary for at-risk youth, teaching discipline and confidence alongside martial arts. Her reputation grew, and within a year she had 3 locations across LA. They moved in together after 6 months, Nia insisting on keeping her apartment for the first year, just in case, but spending every night in Dae-hyun's penthouse, learning each other's rhythms, building a life that honored their pasts while reaching for something new. Dae-hyun kept photos of Ji-won and Sumin everywhere, talked about them openly, teaching Nia their favorite recipes, sharing stories. Nia never felt threatened by his love for them, understood that grief and new love could coexist, that moving forward didn't mean forgetting, but challenges kept coming. Not from external enemies now, but from within. Some of Dae-hyun's former allies resented the changes, missed the power and money of illegal operations. Whispers circulated that he'd gone soft, that the black woman had unmanned him. The confrontation came at a family gathering. Lee Sang-min, one of his father's oldest friends, stood and addressed Dae-hyun in front of everyone. "You've brought shame to the Kang name," Lee said in Korean. "Your father built an empire, and you're dismantling it, all because of that woman." Dae-hyun's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Nia stood. "I speak Korean," she said in perfect Seoul dialect, startling everyone. "I've been studying for 2 years, so I heard exactly what you said." She turned to Lee, eyes blazing. "You say I've unmanned Dae-hyun? Let me ask you something. When Dae-hyun was drinking himself to death in alleys, where were you? When Jinseok was running your precious organization into the ground with drugs and trafficking, where were you?" Lee sputtered, but Nia wasn't finished. "I found Dae-hyun getting stabbed by thugs and saved his life. I pulled him out of alcoholism and depression. I stood beside him while he challenged Jinseok and rebuilt this family into something honorable. And you dare suggest I've made him weak?" She moved closer to Lee, and despite the size difference, he stepped back. "The only shame here is yours. Clinging to the old ways, the illegal ways, because you're too cowardly to adapt. Dae-hyun is twice the man you'll ever be, and if you can't see that, you don't deserve to be part of this family." Silence. Then slowly others began standing. Younger members, those who'd embraced the changes, showing support for Dae-hyun and Nia. Lee looked around, realized he was alone in his opposition, and sat down humiliated. Later that night, alone in their penthouse, Dae-hyun pulled Nia close. "You didn't have to defend me like that." "Yes, I did. You're my partner. That means we face everything together." She kissed him softly. "And besides, someone needed to put that old bigot in his place." "When did you learn Korean?" "Started the day after our first date. Master Sergeant Kim helped. She's from Seoul, remember? I wanted to understand your world completely, not just the parts you translated for me." Dae-hyun felt his eyes sting with tears. "I love you. God, Nia, I love you so much. I love you too, even when you're being a stubborn idiot about accepting help." She grinned. "Now come to bed. Tomorrow we have that meeting with the city council about expanding community programs." The legitimate Kang family businesses thrived. Dae-hyun became a respected figure in LA's Korean community. Philanthropist, businessman, advocate for immigrant rights. He used his resources to fund education programs, small business loans, community centers. Everything his organization had once controlled through fear, they now supported through investment. Nia's dojos expanded to 6 locations. She developed a program for at-risk youth, combining martial arts training with mentorship and educational support. Hundreds of kids, Korean, Black, Latino, every background, found discipline and purpose through her teaching. They got married on a beach in Jeju Island, 3 years after that night in the alley. A small ceremony, Dae-hyun's remaining family, Nia's siblings from Detroit, Master Sergeant Kim flying in from Seoul, and a few trusted friends. Dae-hyun wore traditional hanbok. Nia addressed that blended Korean and American styles. When they exchanged vows, speaking in both Korean and English, there wasn't a dry eye present. "I promise to honor your past while building our future," Nia said. "To remember Ji-won and Sumin with you. To keep their memory alive. To stand beside you in business and in life. To be your partner, your friend, your love. I promise to never stop fighting for us, Dae-hyun replied. To be the man you saw in that alley when you could have walked away. To build a life that honors everything we've survived and everything we hope to become. You saved my life, Nia. Now let me spend the rest of it proving I was worth saving. The kiss was sweet and sure, and when they turned to face their guests, Dae-hyun felt Ji-won's presence like a blessing. She would have liked Nia, he knew, would have appreciated her strength, her honesty, the way she'd pulled him back from the edge. The reception was a blend of cultures, Korean drumming and R&B, bulgogi and soul food, tradition and innovation. Dae-hyun's people mixing with Nia's, barriers dissolving in celebration. You did it, Nia whispered as they danced. Built something new from the ashes. We did it. I couldn't have done any of this alone. That's what partners are for. But life never stays simple for long. 6 months after the wedding, trouble found them again. Not from within the organization this time, but from outside. A rival family from San Francisco, the Choi organization, trying to expand into LA territory. They're targeting your legitimate businesses, Dae-hyun's security chief reported. Vandalism, intimidation, property damage. They want you to react, to give them an excuse to escalate. We don't react, Dae-hyun said firmly. We document everything, work with the police, handle this legally. That makes us look weak. That makes us look civilized. There's a difference. But Dae-hyun's jaw was tight with frustration. He'd worked so hard to leave violence behind, to build something clean. And now someone was trying to drag him back. The attacks escalated. One of Nia's dojos was firebombed. Thankfully at night, no one hurt, but the damage was extensive. She stood in the ruins, soot on her face, eyes hard with fury. Who did this? She demanded. The Choi family. They're trying to provoke me into a war. Dae-hyun's fist clenched. I'm handling it through legal channels, but fuck legal channels. They attacked my dojo, my kid's safe space. Nia's voice was cold. I'm going to San Francisco. I'm going to find whoever ordered this, and I'm going to end them. Nia, no, that's exactly what they want. I don't care what they want. They crossed a line. She turned to face him. You wanted to go legitimate, and I supported that. But Dae-hyun, there are some battles you can't win with lawyers and police reports. Sometimes you have to fight. I don't want you in danger. Too late. I'm already in danger. They know who I am, what I mean to you. So I'm not waiting around to be a victim. I'm taking the fight to them. Dae-hyun knew that look in her eyes, the same one she'd had in the alley that first night, facing down 4 armed men. Nothing he said would change her mind. Then I'm coming with you. No, you stay here, protect your operations, maintain your legitimate status. Nia's expression softened slightly. I need you to trust me, Dae-hyun. I'm not the woman who needs saving anymore. I'm the warrior. Let me fight. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. Watching her leave for San Francisco with a small team of his best people. Former soldiers, martial artists, people who understood violence, but wielded it with precision. Nia led them, her karate expertise and military training making her the perfect commander for this kind of operation. For 3 days, Dae-hyun heard nothing. 3 days of pacing his penthouse, checking his phone obsessively, imagining every worst-case scenario. His legitimate operations continued, meetings and contracts and normal business, but his mind was in San Francisco, with Nia, praying she'd come home safe. On the 4th day, his phone rang. Unknown number. Kang Dae-hyun? A woman's voice, older, speaking Korean with a Gyeongsang accent. Who is this? Choi Young-hee. I run the Choi family. Your wife is here, in my office, and we need to talk. All of us, now. Dae-hyun caught the next flight to San Francisco, fear and fury warring in his chest. He was met at the airport by one of Nia's team. Ji-ho, former ROK Army, built like a tank. She's fine, Ji-ho said immediately. Unharmed, but boss, you need to see what she did. They drove to the Choi family's headquarters, a nondescript building in the industrial district. Inside, Dae-hyun found Nia sitting calmly in a conference room, across from an older Korean woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes, Choi Young-hee. Dae-hyun, Nia said, standing. Good, you're here. Mrs. Choi and I have been negotiating. Negotiating? He looked between them, confused. Your wife, Young Hee said in heavily accented English, clearly struggling with the language, is terrifying. In 3 days, she dismantled my operation piece by piece. Didn't kill anyone, I was clear on that. She looked at Nia with grudging respect, but destroyed millions in assets, exposed corrupt police officers on my payroll, and left my organization in chaos. I fight smart, not bloody, Nia explained. I studied their operations, found their weak points, applied pressure surgically. No deaths, no permanent injuries, just strategic destruction. Then she walked into my office this morning, Young Hee continued, and offered a treaty. Said she'd help me rebuild what she destroyed if I agreed to stay out of LA and transition my operations to legitimate businesses. Da-hyun stared at his wife. You? What? I learned from you. Violence isn't always the answer, but neither is passive resistance. Nia's smile was sharp. Sometimes you have to demonstrate strength before offering partnership. Mrs. Choi was attacking because she thought you were weak. I showed her you're not. Now we're negotiating as equals. She reminds me of my daughter, Young Hee said, switching to Korean. Fierce, intelligent, unwilling to accept limitations. She turned to Dae-hyun. You're a lucky man, Kang Dae-hyun, and I'm a fool for underestimating both of you. The treaty was signed that day. The Choi family would stay in San Francisco, begin transitioning to legitimate operations with the Kang family's help and investment. In return, they'd provide support for Dae-hyun's operations in Northern California, creating an alliance instead of enemies. On the flight home, Dae-hyun held Nia's hand. You're incredible. You know that. I'm practical. They wanted a war. I gave them a demonstration. Then I offered peace from a position of strength. She leaned against his shoulder. Master Sergeant Kim always said the best victory is the one where no one has to die. I was terrified for you. I know, but Dae-hyun, you can't protect me from everything, and you shouldn't have to. We're partners. That means sometimes I protect you, sometimes you protect me, and sometimes we fight together. I love you. I love you too. Even when you're being overprotective and controlling. They flew home to LA, to their life, to the empire they'd built together, not through fear or violence, but through strength and strategy and the willingness to adapt. 2 years later, Nia's 8th dojo opened in Compton. The ceremony was attended by city council members, community leaders, and hundreds of her students, kids who'd found purpose and discipline through martial arts. Da-hyun watched from the crowd as Nia demonstrated advanced kata with her senior students, moving with the grace and power that had first captivated him in that alley. She'd saved his life that night, but she'd also given him something more, a reason to rebuild, to become better, to honor his family's memory by being worthy of it. After the ceremony, they walked through the new facility together. Remember when you were waitressing, teaching kids in a rec room? Remember when you were drunk in an alley, getting stabbed by thugs? Nia grinned. We've come a long way. Because of you. Because of us. Together. That's how it works. She took his hand. Da-hyun, I want to talk about something. About the future. What about it? I want a family. Kids. I know you're scared. Losing Soo-min was devastating, and the idea of loving another child that deeply terrifies you. But I think we could do it. Together. Dae-hyun felt fear spike through him, sharp and familiar. I don't know if I can. If something happened, something could always happen. That's life. But Dae-hyun, you're not honoring Soo-min's memory by being too afraid to love again. You're just letting fear win. Nia squeezed his hand. I'm not asking you to forget her. I'm asking you to remember what she taught you, how to love completely without reservation, to give that gift to another child. Tears burned his eyes. What if I fail them like I failed Soo-min? You didn't fail her. A drunk driver killed her. That wasn't your fault. Nia's voice was gentle but firm. And you won't fail our children because you'll have me beside you. We'll be partners in this, like we are in everything else. I'm scared. Me too. But we can be scared together. Their daughter was born a year later. They named her Jimin, honoring both Ji-won and Soo-min, carrying their memory forward. She had Nia's eyes and Dae-hyun's smile, and from the moment he held her, Dae-hyun understood that love wasn't betrayal. That moving forward honored the past instead of erasing it. Their son followed 2 years after, Marcus, named for Nia's fiancé who died in Afghanistan. 2 children, 2 different paths honored, 2 futures promised. Daehyun taught them Korean alongside English. Nia taught them karate as soon as they could walk. They grew up knowing their father had once been lost but had been saved by their mother's courage. Knowing their mother had overcome poverty and discrimination through discipline and strength. Knowing that love could be found in the most unlikely places. And they grew up in a home where photos of Jiwon and Sumin hung alongside current family pictures. Where the past was honored but didn't haunt. Where 2 broken people had built something whole. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Daehyun took Nia back to the alley where they'd first met. It had been renovated, now a small community garden maintained by the local business association. "This is where it started," he said, standing where he'd once sat bleeding and drunk. "This is where you charged in with your karate and saved a dying man." "I didn't save you. You saved yourself." Nia wrapped her arms around him. "I just gave you a reason to try. You gave me everything, a second chance, a new life, the courage to love again." Daehyun pulled out a small box. "Which is why I wanted to come back here, to show you what grew from that moment." He opened the box to reveal a necklace, a delicate pendant shaped like a karate gi belt, studded with diamonds. "You're my warrior, my savior, the woman who kicked 4 armed men's asses and then stitched up a stranger because it was right. Daehyun, it's beautiful. You're beautiful, and I want you to know every single day that saving me was the best thing you ever did. Not just for me, but for everyone our partnership has helped. Every kid in your dojos, every family in our community programs, every person whose life is better because you had the courage to fight for a drunk stranger." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "I'd do it again, 1,000 times. I know. That's why I love you." They stood in that garden, where violence had once lived, where blood had been spilled, where a woman with a 4th-degree black belt had seen someone worth saving. And they understood that sometimes the most unlikely love stories are the ones that matter most, because sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it takes the form of a waitress with deadly skills and a warrior's heart. Sometimes it looks like a broken man willing to rebuild. And sometimes the best thing you can do is charge into an alley and fight for someone who's forgotten how to fight for themselves. Years passed, bringing the kind of challenges that define a life well lived. Jimin inherited her mother's martial arts talent, competing nationally by age 12. Marcus developed his father's head for business, talking strategy and investment before he hit high school. The Kang family's legitimate empire expanded across the West Coast. Security services, import-export, real estate development, all above board, all profitable, all providing jobs and opportunities for the Korean-American community. Daehyun became a voice for immigrant rights, using his resources and reputation to advocate for those without power. Nia's dojos became a franchise, 20 locations across 5 states, all following her model of combining martial arts with mentorship. She published books on self-defense, appeared on television, became a recognized figure in both the martial arts and self-improvement worlds, but she never forgot where she came from, always keeping that first location in Koreatown, teaching kids who couldn't afford expensive lessons. But success brought new challenges, not violent ones this time. Those days were behind them, but the kind that test relationships in different ways. The stress of running multiple businesses, raising children, maintaining their public profiles, and staying true to themselves took its toll. They argued more about money, about time, about priorities. Small resentments build up, the way they do in any long marriage. "You're never home," Nia said one night, frustration bubbling over. "You're always at some meeting, some conference, some business deal. When was the last time you came to one of Jimin's competitions or helped Marcus with homework?" "I'm building our future," Daehyun shot back, "making sure our children have opportunities, that our community has resources. That's what I do." "But who are you doing it for? Them or yourself? Because it feels like you're running from something, drowning yourself in work the way you used to drown yourself in alcohol." The accusation stung because it was true. Daehyun had replaced one addiction with another. Instead of bottles, now it was business deals and acquisitions and the constant need to prove himself, to show he'd truly left his criminal past behind, that he was respectable, honorable, worthy. "I'm not running," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Then what do you call 12-hour days and business trips every other week? Dae-hyun, I need my partner back. Our kids need their father. Not the successful businessman, the actual man. They sought counseling, something that would have been unthinkable in the old world of Korean organized crime, but was simply what healthy people did when their relationships struggled. Dr. Melissa Chen, a Korean-American therapist who understood cultural context but didn't let it excuse behavior. You're both high achievers, Dr. Chen observed during one session. You've overcome incredible obstacles, built something remarkable. But sometimes success is harder to handle than struggle. Because when you're fighting to survive, you're united by necessity. When you've achieved your goals, you have to choose unity intentionally. I don't know how to just be, Dae-hyun admitted. When I'm not working, not building, I feel this panic. Like if I stop moving, everything will fall apart. Like you'll disappoint them, Nia said softly, understanding dawning. Ji-won and Soo-min, like you'll prove you didn't deserve to survive when they didn't. The truth of it broke something open in Dae-hyun. He'd built an empire, transformed his family's legacy, married an incredible woman, raised beautiful children, and still carried the guilt of survival. Still felt he had to earn the right to be alive. They wouldn't want this, Nia continued, tears in her eyes. Your first family wouldn't want you working yourself to death. They'd want you to live, truly live, to be present for the family you have now. I don't know how. You learn. We'll do it together like everything else. Dr. Chen worked with them on boundaries, on work-life balance, on communication strategies. Slowly, painfully, Dae-hyun learned to delegate, to trust his managers, to step back from the constant need to control everything. Learned that being a good father meant showing up for homework and karate competitions, not just providing financial security. Nia learned, too, that her drive to help every at-risk kid sometimes meant neglecting her own children, that she couldn't save everyone, that sometimes the most important work happened at home. They took a sabbatical, 3 months with minimal work, traveling through Southeast Asia with their kids, visiting temples, learning history, experiencing cultures. Jimin and Marcus got to see their parents as people, not just achievement machines, and Dae-hyun and Nia rediscovered why they'd fallen in love. Remember when we were simple? Nia asked one night on a beach in Thailand, kids building sandcastles nearby. You were just a drunk criminal. I was just a waitress. No empire, no responsibilities. Just us. We were never simple. You were a combat medic with a black belt. I was running the Korean Mafia. Dae-hyun smiled. But I know what you mean. Before all the success complicated things. I don't want to go back. I love what we've built. I just want to make sure we're building it for the right reasons. For them. Dae-hyun watched their children playing, Marcus protective of his younger sister, Jimin teaching him some karate move. For the community, for ourselves, not to prove anything or escape anything, just because it's good work that needs doing. Exactly. They returned to LA, renewed, recommitted, restructured their businesses to allow more family time. Set boundaries. No work calls during dinner, weekends reserved for family unless absolutely necessary, quarterly vacations with no laptops allowed. It wasn't perfect, but it was better, healthier, real. When Jimin was 16, she came to them with questions. Dad, I know you used to be in the Mafia. And Mom, I know you were in the army, did things you don't talk about, but you've built something good now. How did you do it? How did you change? Dae-hyun and Nia exchanged glances, a whole conversation in that look. They'd known this day would come, when their children would ask about the past, the darkness they'd overcome. We didn't do it alone, Dae-hyun said carefully. We had each other. Your mother saved my life, literally and figuratively. Gave me a reason to change. And your father showed me that strength isn't just about fighting, Nia added. It's about building, protecting, creating something better than what you were born into. But the violence, Jimin pressed. You killed people, Dad. Both of you have. How do you live with that? The question hung heavy. Dae-hyun had known it would come eventually, but it still cut deep. I live with it by making sure their deaths meant something. That the world I helped create is better than the one that required violence. And by raising you and your brother to be better than I was, do you have regrets? Every single day. But regret without action is just self-indulgence. Daehyun's voice was steady. So I act, I build, I protect. I try to honor the lives I took by making sure others don't have to make the same choices I did. And you, Mom? I was a soldier. Did things soldiers do in war. Some of them haunt me. Nia's eyes were distant, seeing battlefields her daughter would never understand. But I came home and became a teacher. Channeled that warrior energy into protecting kids instead of killing enemies. That's my redemption. Jimin thought about this, processing. I want to be like you, both of you. Not the violence part, but the transformation. The building something good from broken pieces. You already are, Daehyun said. You're the best of both of us, without our mistakes to carry. That's not true, everyone carries something. But maybe I can carry it differently, use it better. Jimin smiled, and Daehyun saw both her mother's strength and her older sister Sumin's light in that expression. I'm thinking about criminal justice reform, using law to change the system that creates people like the old you. Pride swelled in Daehyun's chest. His daughter wanted to be an agent of change, not through violence but through law. Wanted to dismantle the systems that had created men like him. It was perfect. It was redemption. Then we'll support you completely, Nia said. Whatever you need. Tutors, internships, connections. You're going to change the world, baby girl. I learned from the best. On their 20th anniversary, Daehyun and Nia returned to the alley one final time. The community garden had grown lush, memorial plaques honoring those who died in Koreatown's violent past, including one for the 4 men Nia had fought that first night, recovered addicts who turned their lives around before dying in a fire, saving children from a burning building. Even them, Nia said, reading their plaque. Even the men who tried to kill you found redemption, because you didn't kill them, just scared them straight. Daehyun smiled. Your mercy changed their lives. Our mercy. You could have had them killed afterward, could have sent your people to finish what I started, but you let them go, let them rebuild. Nia took his hand. That's when I knew you were different, that you could actually change. They stood in silence, remembering. The drunk man bleeding against a dumpster, the waitress with deadly hands and a savior complex, the impossible love that grew from violence and grief. If you could go back, Daehyun said quietly, knowing everything that would come, the struggles, the danger, the years of fighting to build something better, would you still charge into that alley? Every single time, without hesitation. Nia turned to face him. Because loving you, building this life with you, was worth every risk, every challenge, every moment of fear. You're worth it, Daehyun. You've always been worth it. Even when I was a drunk criminal death wish, especially then, because I saw what you could be, saw the man underneath all the pain and self-destruction, and I was right. She cupped his face. Look at you now. Respected businessman, community leader, father, husband, everything you were meant to be before grief and violence broke you. I'm only these things because you wouldn't let me die, wouldn't let me give up, wouldn't accept anything less than my best self. Daehyun pulled her close. You're my warrior, Nia, my savior, the woman who kicked death's ass and told him he couldn't have me. Damn right I did. You're mine, and I don't share. They kissed in that garden where blood had once been spilled, where violence had been transformed into beauty, where 2 broken people had found each other and built something whole. 20 years of marriage, of partnership, of fighting together instead of alone. Thank you, Daehyun whispered against her lips, for seeing me, for saving me, for loving me despite everything I was and everything I could never be. Thank you for being worth saving, for fighting to become better, for building this life with me. Nia smiled. And for never complaining about my karate trophies taking up half the penthouse. They're monuments to your greatness. I'd give you the whole penthouse if you asked. I don't need the whole penthouse. Just you, always you. The epilogue of their story played out over the following years, a legacy built on second chances and transformation. Jimin became a civil rights attorney, dismantling the very systems her father had once operated within. Marcus took over the family businesses, expanding their legitimate empire while maintaining the community focus his parents had established. Nia's dojos became a national chain, with Nia herself training the next generation of martial artists and mentors. She wrote her memoir, The Warrior's Path, From Combat Medic to Community Leader, which became a bestseller and inspired thousands. Dae-hyun fully transitioned from businessman to philanthropist, using his resources to fund educational programs, immigrant support services, and anti-violence initiatives. He gave speeches about redemption, about the possibility of change, about honoring the dead by building something better for the living. They aged together, silver threads appearing in Nia's natural hair, lines deepening around Dae-hyun's eyes. But they remained partners, still training together in her dojo, still strategizing about business, still stealing kisses in the garden that had once been an alley. Their grandchildren came, Jimin's twins, brilliant and fierce, already showing their grandmother's martial arts talent. Marcus's son, quiet and thoughtful, with his grandfather's strategic mind. A new generation, untouched by the violence of the past, shaped by the love and purpose their grandparents had built. And on quiet nights, when the house was full of family and laughter and life, Dae-hyun would catch Nia's eye across the room. Remember that first night? The drunk man and the warrior woman. The impossible meeting that had changed everything. Worth it? She'd sign across the distance. A private language they developed over decades. Every second, he'd sign back. Every breath, every moment. Because sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it looks like a black waitress with a 4th-degree black belt and a savior complex. Sometimes it looks like a broken Korean crime boss willing to rebuild himself piece by piece. And sometimes the best love stories are the ones where two broken people save each other, build something beautiful from the wreckage, and prove that redemption is always possible for those brave enough to fight for it. Dae-hyun died at 78, peacefully in his sleep, Nia beside him as she'd been for over 40 years. His funeral was attended by thousands, business leaders, community members, former enemies turned friends. But the eulogy was delivered by their daughter Jimin, speaking with her mother's strength and her father's wisdom. My father was not a perfect man, she began. He made terrible choices, hurt people, lived in darkness for years. But he had the courage to change, the strength to rebuild, and the wisdom to know that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about honoring it by being better. He used to tell me that my mother saved his life twice, once in an alley when she fought off his attackers, and once every day after when she loved him despite his broken pieces and helped him become whole. Jimin's voice trembled. He said the greatest gift anyone could receive was being seen as worth saving, and he spent his whole life trying to be worthy of that gift. Dad, you were worthy. From that first night when Mom charged in with her karate skills and her stubbornness. You were always worthy. You just needed someone brave enough to show you. Nia stood beside the casket, hand resting on the wood, and felt Dae-hyun's presence like a warm blanket. He'd left her detailed letters, one for every anniversary they'd missed, one for every birthday she'd celebrate without him. The first one, opened that night, simply said, "My warrior wife, my savior, my love. Thank you for charging into that alley. Thank you for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. Thank you for every moment of the past 40 years. You made me a better man. You made me a father again. You made me worthy of the life I was given. I'll wait for you on the other side, and when you arrive, many, many years from now, I hope, I'll have your favorite tea ready. Until then, keep fighting, keep teaching, keep being the warrior the world needs. I love you. I've always loved you. I'll always love you." Your drunk criminal who got lucky. Nia folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down her face. Around her, family gathered close. Children, grandchildren, the extended community they'd built together. All of them proof that one moment of courage, one decision to fight for a stranger, could change the world. She lived another 15 years, teaching until her body couldn't keep up with her spirit. On her 90th birthday, surrounded by family in that same community garden where everything had started, Nia stood before a new memorial plaque in memory of Kang Dae-hyun and Nia Carter Kang, who proved that love can grow anywhere, even in alleys, that warriors come in unexpected forms, that redemption is always possible, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save a stranger's life and let them save yours in return. He was right, you know, Nia said to Jimin, who stood beside her in her judge's robes, having just been appointed to the federal bench. About being lucky, I charged into that alley on impulse and found my entire future. You both were lucky, lucky to find each other, lucky to be brave enough to change, Lucky to build something that outlived you. Not luck, choice. Every single day we chose each other, chose to fight for our relationship, our family, our community. That's not luck, baby girl. That's love. Nia closed her eyes, feeling the sun on her face, remembering the scared, violent night, the drunken man bleeding against a dumpster, her own certainty that she had to help, had to fight, had to save this stranger who would become her everything. And she understood something fundamental. You never know when your life will change. Never know when a random choice to walk down an alley, to confront violence, to save a stranger, will alter everything that follows. But that's the beauty of it. That's the hope. Every moment holds infinite possibility. Every choice can lead to redemption. Every stranger might be your salvation. All you have to do is be brave enough to charge into the darkness, skilled enough to fight, compassionate enough to save someone who's forgotten how to save themselves. Nia died quietly that night, her great-grandchildren sleeping in the next room, photos of Daehyun surrounding her. Her last thought was of that alley, that moment, that choice, and she smiled, knowing she'd do it all again. Every fight, every struggle, every beautiful moment. Because in the end, the best love stories aren't about perfection. They're about two broken people who refuse to let each other break. About warriors who fight not just with fists, but with hope. About the courage to charge into darkness and pull someone into the light. The drunken Korean mafia boss and the black waitress with deadly karate skills. An impossible love that shouldn't have worked. A redemption arc that defied every expectation. A legacy that would outlive them both. Proof that sometimes the most unlikely people build the most beautiful lives. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, Daehyun was waiting with tea and that crooked smile. Ready to thank his warrior one more time for saving his life. Ready to spend eternity proving he'd been worth saving.